All right, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. If you guys are new, my name is Addy, and today we've got another guest interview. And on this one, I'm sitting down with Cameron England. He's someone I've been following for quite some time now, especially over the past few years, maybe 2 to 3 years, where he was dropping cold calling videos at the age of 16 years old. And even back then, it was very clear to me that he was going to be one of those relentless guys that blows past everybody in this space. And now, fast forward 3 years, he's built a $3 million business and he's living the nice life in Dubai. So, Cameron, for those people that might not have seen you yet, I'll let you take a moment to introduce yourself.
Hello. So my name's Cameron England. I run an agency in the medical space. Just launched something as well, helping agency owners do the same thing. And long story short, launched an agency about 3 years ago, single mother household, decided to go all in, drop out of high school. And ever since then, I've lived, breathed, and slept the agency. And here we are today. That's pretty much the
Yeah,
high level overview. And right now we're doing about $3 million a year in the agency.
I love it. I love it. Well, I do want to go back, to those early times because I feel like you're being a bit modest there with that introduction. So rewinding, a few years back, how did you get started in this agency space, and why did you choose this model to begin with?
100%. So I actually didn't get started in the agency space initially. I started just trying to figure out ways to make money online. I always knew that I was always a stubborn kid, as my mother told me, and I believe it, to be honest, where it was either my way or the highway, she used to say. And I stumbled across like ways to make money. Initially, I was selling vapes in the high school toilets trying to make money. I was selling sweets like 3, 4 years before that when I first got into, we call it secondary school in the UK, high school in the US, obviously. And then from there, Andrew Tate started blowing up, right? And then I actually joined his Hustlers University, got into copywriting, and that was my first time figuring out how to actually make money online. And the only thing that I'd say the biggest takeaway was from like his program and what I invested in was how hard it was. Because you get into business and you have this like uninformed optimism, right? Where you think, oh, I can just go into SMMA, copywriting, I'll sign
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
3K a month retainers, I'll make a bunch of money. And I very quickly realized that wasn't the case. And, before school, after school, sending cold emails, learning copywriting, joining all the live calls, probably made about $500 in the span of a year. But then that's when I came across Thomas Garnett. I know, very well-known person in the SMMA space. And I saw this thing where he was selling the outcome. And what I mean by that is you go into SMMA and you can actually promise them, I'm going to get you X amount of leads, X amount of appointments. I'm going to make you X amount in revenue in terms of the leads we bring you. And with copywriting, I didn't really have that level of tangibility. It was just like, I'm going to write this thing and hopefully it helps you. And I was like, holy
Mm-hmm.
shit, I can go into this model where I can actually promise an outcome and I'm going to get paid way more money because people want outcomes. They don't want the vehicle, right? And
Yeah.
that was my initial introduction into SMMA. And I really just completely copied what Thomas was doing. I was like, med spa, I'm going into med spa. Oh, he's doing appointment setting. I'm going to do appointment setting. And I must have rewatched his first video probably 30 times to figure out what he
Yeah.
was doing and how he was doing it. And that was my, as you would say, my introduction into this type of business model.
Oh, okay. So that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, I mentioned this before in the intro, but it was very clear to me when your videos started popping up on my feed, you were, doing those cold calling videos. I think at that time you were 16 probably,
hmm
right?
Yep.
Yeah. And I remember there was one where you were talking about making sacrifices and working 12 plus hours a day at that age still, and I know you still talk about that now. How did you build that mindset? Because regardless of how old somebody is, like a lot of people don't ever adopt that in the first place.
hmm Yeah, good question. I think it was a mix of things. I think number one, just to be transparent, insecurity. Um, I was always the really overweight kid that didn't really have many friends. And then as
Mhm.
I grew up, I lost the weight and then I got obsessed with needing to be the center of attention in everything and wanting to have that external validation from other people. And then I think that also ties in just like on the personal side. I didn't have a father figure in my life. So it was out of a place of number one, like anger and wanting to be able to make something of myself because I always had this level of inconsistency in my life where we would always be moving homes every couple of months. We'd go from a really nice 4 bedroom house to a 1 bedroom house to my grandparents' home again. And I was kind of ashamed to get dropped off at school in like the worst car in the entire parking lot. Um,
Mm.
I hated that feeling of inconsistency and almost like I was out of control. And always just see my mum, bless her, bring me and my brother up as a single mother struggling for money in the middle of nowhere where there's barely any opportunity. I feel like they were the main drivers that came from it. And a big part of that was necessity. I didn't really have a choice. It was either be average, get by, live on what we call in the UK benefits, which is basically where the government pay you to be able to live so you don't go homeless, or I can burn the boats and go all in. And I think I always had this sense of delusion where I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do it, what's going to happen. I don't even know how the hell I'm going to make the money and what I'm going to do in my life, but I just trust in myself from a higher power, God, whatever you want to call it, that it will make itself out and something will come from it.
Dude, I love that. That's amazing. I had no idea that you even dropped out of high school because you
Yeah.
just mentioned that earlier. Was that grade 12 or grade 11?
What? I'm just trying to think. So I was 15, just about to turn 16. In the UK, we call it college. It's obviously not college, it's high
Right,
school
right.
in the US.
Yeah.
So I literally just came out of secondary school, came into college here, high school, obviously still in the US. And
Hmm.
I got an apprenticeship. So it's like a rotational equipment electrician. I turned it down. And then my whole family basically disowned me for a little bit. They were like, what the hell are you doing? You'll make 40K a year in like 10 years and
Yeah.
you'll be working 12 hours a day. It'll be great. I
Yeah.
went and studied business, not for any reason
Mm.
other than the fact that it was the only thing in college that was 3 days a week. And I was like, great, I'm going to do this and I'm going to figure out what the hell I'm going to do in the free time. And I got about a month in, 2 months in, and I started doing cold outreach in the med spa niche, signed a couple of clients. I was calling all of their leads and I was just calling in sick for like weeks straight, calling their leads, figuring out the ads piece. And it got to when I was just about to turn 16 and I was like, I've got to make the leap. And on my
Yeah.
birthday, when I turned 16, I went to my family, I sat them down, and I was like, I just want you guys to know before we open any presents, I'm dropping out. And they were all just like, what? They were like, even though it was my birthday, they let me off, but they were like, you've been brainwashed by Andrew Tate. That's basically what
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
thought.
That's hilarious. Oh man, it worked
Yeah.
out though, so that's awesome. During that period, man, when you were just getting started and doing everything, calling the leads, calling, cold calling, everything like that, what would you do differently if you had to go back? I think that's going to be super valuable for someone listening who's kind of in that position right now.
I think there's one of two things that I would have done differently because there's like a number of different paths, right? And if you think about it, like the small things in your life change the entire trajectory of your life. Where, like, for example, if I didn't start the agency then and maybe I held off for 6 months, we wouldn't be on this call now. I wouldn't have met the people I
Exactly.
met. I wouldn't have the business that I built. Everything could be completely different in the way that it panned out.
Hmm.
One thing that I recommend people when they're first starting out, and I kind of wish I did, I kind of wish I didn't, but I think even more so now, it's harder than it was then, but it's also easier at the same time because there's like new opportunities with AI that are coming out and things are getting easier, but
Hmm.
there's also more competition that comes as a byproduct of that. And like
Right.
SMMA, people don't really talk about it a lot. They talk more about like AI infrastructure, which is the new way of basically
Yeah.
saying SMMA, but just having a chatbot call their leads or something like that, which is pretty much the same fucking thing, to be honest.
Exactly. Yeah.
But like to answer your question, I think I probably would have got a sales job when I first started. And the reason I
Mm.
say that is because one of the biggest things that I think people struggle with when they start is number one, cash flow. They don't have the cash flow to invest in things like ads. And the way that I see it is when you acquire clients, cold outreach is kind of like walking, and paid ads are like the car. And if you can take the
Mm.
car and you have the option, why the hell wouldn't you? Because you're going to get from A to Z significantly faster. So I would have got a sales job for that reason. And number two, I would have got a sales job in a niche and a business model exactly like mine with somebody that's already doing what I'm doing or what I wanted to do. So I could have, number one, learned from them. They would have taught me and I would understand the entire acquisition process, the sales process, how we're handing off to client success. I would have understood things on a way more granular level. Because for me, I was just going in with a blindfold on and figuring it out. But if I
Mm.
had that knowledge and experience beforehand and I got a sales job and stacked maybe 5, 10, 15K before, I would have gone in way more prepared. And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I'm grateful for the way that I did it. It worked. But
Right.
I also think that way I may have got there a little bit faster in the long term. But in the short term, you take 5 steps back to take 10 steps forward, you know?
Mm. That makes a lot of sense. I like that answer. Now I do want to get into the agency side of things,
Let's roll.
and this is the part I'm quite excited for too. I run an agency in the local business space, so I know I'm going to get a lot of value just hearing these answers, and everyone else will too. So what does a $250,000 per month agency actually look like? You know, how many clients are you guys working with? How many employees do you have? How do operations look? I'm curious.
Yeah. So we have about 110 clients. Our
Wow.
team is, how many people do we have? I think we have around 23 people. We leaned it
Mhm.
down because when we were scaling fast, which a lot of agencies fall into the mistake of, is we hired too many people prematurely and we had to lay a lot
Yeah.
of people off. So at our peak point, we had about 28 or 30 people. Now we've got about 22, 23, 110 clients. Um, in terms of operations, I'm not going to lie to you. When you run a done for you agency, it's heavily complex. Because there's like three different types of agencies you can run. You can run a do it yourself, which is more of like a info based product. You can run a done
Mhm.
with you, which is, hey, I'm going to generate the leads for you. Then you're off to the races with booking them, closing them, getting them to show, all that stuff. And then you've got done for you, where you come to the client and you kind of take on an equal level of responsibility. If not, you take on three of the four pieces of the pie, which is, hey, I'm going to generate the leads for you. I'm going to book them. I'm going to get them to show. I just need you to do the last piece of the puzzle, which is getting them to close. And that's the model that I'm in, where we do those
Mhm.
initial three pieces. The client just needs to close, and then we support them with that piece as well.
Wow. And then in terms of getting clients, are you guys right now just running paid ads or do you have other channels as well?
We have a couple of channels. So our main acquisition channel is ads. I'd
Okay.
say about 65 to 70% of our acquisition is ads. The other 30% is split and distributed between a couple of acquisition channels. We've got outbound, which we're continuing to grow every month. One of those is like, outbound is a lot harder to scale. You need teams
Yeah.
for it. But once you crack it and you can scale it, why wouldn't you? You know?
Mhm.
And we started off with getting like one client a month from it, and we're just scaling it up from like 3 to 5 to 6, and it's pretty much free. So why wouldn't we? You know, we've got the acquisition cost of paying an appointment setter to do the outreach. Once we've built the system, is pretty much ready to roll. So we've got some of our
Right.
acquisition coming from that. And then we've also got referral networks. So obviously we're very active in reaching out to current and existing clients to get referrals. And then we have partnerships within our industry where, say, for example, we work with a machine provider that sells the machines to the medical spa. They will provide us clients when they sell a machine because they're going to need marketing for that machine. So they're like our main three or four acquisition channels.
Oh, okay. And then I remember in a video recently, you were talking about how with paid ads, you know, you kind of reached a point of disproportional returns in the agency where the amount you were spending wasn't necessarily, you know, resulting in extra clients and additional revenue. So does that just generally happen with scale, or did you figure a way around that?
Well, there is definitely ways around it, right? Because whether we like it or not, when you're running a local based agency, it's all dependent on the size of your market. So, for
Yeah.
example, in the medical spa niche, there's only about 15,000 medical spas in the US. It could be, I think it's between 10 to 20K. The TAM isn't super big. So that means
Mm.
as you continue to scale your ads, you're going to reach more people, but you're just going to be reaching the same people again and again and again,
Right.
but simply because the market isn't big enough. So for
Mhm.
us, the way that we got around that was you can then start to horizontally or vertically scale, and you can do one of those two ways. I chose horizontal, which I just personally think it's a lot easier, and I'm all for finding the highest leverage thing that I can do without changing anything about our process. So an example of a horizontally scaling as an example would be us going from med spa to then starting to target pain management clinics, ketamine therapy clinics, sleep apnea clinics. The fulfillment system is the same, but then we open up our TAM to a bigger market. And all we need to do is make a
Mhm.
slight angle change in our messaging on the front end. Vertical, for example, would me be going, how can I go upper market? So I'm serving med spas. Is there a way that I can then go upper market to people that serve the med spas and sell them the machines, and then go, I'm going to build out a B2B acquisition system for you, and I'm going to take a piece of the pie? In that case, you typically can charge way higher when you go vertical, but they're harder to acquire. You've got to figure out a whole new fulfillment system. So I went horizontal. In
Mm.
terms of like our ads, I wouldn't say we hit a point of like we wasn't making any money from it. It's just that the ROI gap gets smaller and smaller and smaller the more that you spend,
Right.
depending on your TAM. Because the more you spend, if you're in a smaller market, you're going to reach the same people again and again and again. You're going to exhaust it a little bit, and your CAC is going to go up. So you're not going to make as big of a gap between how much front end cash you collect and how much you actually spend on the ads. So that was just getting smaller and smaller.
Right. Okay. Okay. That makes sense. And now I've got a two-part question for you. So, what's your advice for someone doing $5,000 to $10,000 per month with the agency, but they want to scale to $20,000 to $50,000 per month? And then your advice for someone who's around that 20 to 50 that wants to get past 100, because I'm sure it takes different things to get past both, right?
It definitely does, yeah. And what I basically did is I kind of like mapped out on a document like the stages of the agency. Like I believe if you're at, you said like 10 to 20K, right? The first
Yeah,
people.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So typically the people between 10 to 20K, I call it stage two of the agency. They're in the delegation dilemma, which is usually where they've got anywhere from 10 to 20 clients and they're usually doing everything themselves. They've got like a 90 to 95% margin besides like software costs, GHL, things like that. In a
Mhm.
position like that, you really want to start, number one, getting a predictable and scalable acquisition channel if you don't already. Start scaling ad spend because one of the biggest things that I learned is I went to so many masterminds to figure this out. I got stuck at, and this will tie into the 50K a month thing. I got stuck at 50K a month for like 3 or 4 months. And I was like, what the
Mhm.
hell do I need to do differently? And I invested like 15K into an in-person event. And I met this guy doing 250K a month. We had better systems, better processes, a bigger team. And the only thing he was doing was spending more than me on ads. And I was like, oh, more is better than better. I just simply
Yeah,
needed to do more. That was it.
yeah,
More volume. And then the just tying back to like 10 to 20K, most people need what I call a black hat VA, which is you hire a VA, you do a time audit, and you figure out what am I spending my time and attention on that is pulling me away from either signing more clients or keeping my clients or making more money from my existing clients, developing product lines, back end ascensions, all that stuff. So hiring a like a black hat VA that can take off some of the low leverage stuff you're doing so you can focus your time on sales, retention, all that stuff that's going to actually move the needle and put money in your pocket, and then scaling your ad spend is going to be the biggest thing for people between say 10 to 20K.
okay, okay. So scaling and then hiring towards that part. And then when did you really start building up your team for? Because right now I think you said you have like 20 something. Was
Mm-hmm.
that past the $50,000 per month where you really started? I guess the margin started decreasing a little bit, but you started bringing on more people and providing more value.
Yeah, so at like the 10 to 20K a month stage, that's where you're probably going to have maybe one or two people on the team. If you're running a done for you agency, you probably already
Yeah.
have an appointment set at calling the leads at this point, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you
Mm-hmm.
also then want to bring on somebody who can actually help on the back end, which is the Black Hat VA. When you get to stage three of the agency, which is like 20 to 50K a month, or like 30 to 50, which is, I call it like the scaling shit show, where you've got a scalable acquisition channel, chances are you're consistently signing new clients. Your problem is things are breaking on the back end. And this is where you actually need
Yeah.
operations, you need systems, you need a project management tool, you need a systematized product line as well, where there's two different agencies you can build. You can build a run of the mill agency where your fulfillment is pretty much exactly the same for every client. That's what I've built, where every client, for the most part, everything is the same except for variables that change, like the client, the offer they're going to run, things like that. Or you could run a super personalized, like princess treatment agency where everybody is different. If you're going to go that route, you really want to be charging 10K a month plus retainers for it to actually make logistical sense because your team is
Mm-hmm.
just going to be all over the shop running around like headless chickens. I would say, in terms of when we fully started developing and building out the team, I'd say when we got to around like 30K a month is when I actually started to have to hire actual team members. So, you get VAs, you have a media buyer, you're going to start considering hiring a client success manager to communicate with the clients because client communication is your biggest constraint. You're spending too much time there. That's when I really started building the team and when I had to figure out how do I hire onshore people? How do I compensate them? How do I manage and train somebody that isn't a VA from the Philippines that I can get away with having no leadership or management skills and they will stay with me because they're grateful for making the amount of money I pay them. So
Yeah.
that stage.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. That makes perfect sense. Now, getting into the service delivery side of things, that's one of the things I do like to talk about quite a bit on the channel too. Um, I want to go back to you mentioning that your agency's a done for you model because I think you have a call center if I'm not wrong,
Yep.
and you've got the appointment setters and everything. So, how did you go about? Well, why did you even decide to build that out in the first place? Because that's one of the things I know a lot of people say it's not scalable in this industry, and people are going to be like, "Hey, you're going to end up losing a lot of money." I'm curious, why did you decide to build that out?
Mm-hmm. Couple of reasons. Number one, Jeff Bezos has a quote when I read his book, and that was one of the biggest reasons that I decided to build it out, which is eat the customer's complexity. What's the hardest thing to solve is not generating leads. Generating leads for local businesses, for people in the local business niche, is so easy. It's my little brother could do it, with a blindfold on.
Yeah,
It's so damn, especially with AI now. Like you can generate
yeah,
creatives in a matter of minutes.
true.
The hard part is following up with those leads. Now we can talk about later like how AI is going to affect that and things like that. But I wanted to eat the customer's complexity, and I know there's pros and cons to both sides of the equation. But I would rather have more control over the outcome that the client gets because I know my retention is going to be higher, and I have less. They have less blame associated to them. So it's like I can't go to the client and go, Johnny, why aren't you calling the leads? And they're like, oh, I don't know, I am calling the leads, they're low quality, which are all the things that you hear when the client's calling the leads. So I just didn't want to have that. And I wanted to create a moat around my agency. And what I mean by moat is like the harder your product is to build, the harder it is to replicate. How easy is it for somebody to go into a niche and go, oh, I'm just going to guarantee 100 leads in 30 days, pay per lead, and just launch some ads? It's not hard at all. How hard is it to build a call center that actually works with 10 call agents that sound American, that call their leads better than they can, that pre-sell all the leads, that get them to show up? Like, that's a lot more difficult. And there's a lot more complexity associated with it. So it was for those main reasons that I decided to develop the call center.
Right. And how long did it take you to, was it immediately like right when you implemented the call center, like it was sunshine and rainbows, or
Hell
did it
no.
take a while to even see some results? Because I'm building that out for myself right now. It started off where I'm like, okay, I'm starting to see some good results, and then now it's more like, oh shit, you need to figure something out here. So I'm curious.
I mean, I will say building a call center is like building a second business. So
It is, yeah.
it's hard. It's hard. Like I know for sure because I consult people that don't have call centers. If you're in a market that doesn't require a call center, you're going to make way more profit, and you're also going to run a way easier business to run, just naturally. But there's levels of sophistication in every market. So, for example, in med spa, there's like low levels of sophistication, medium sophistication, high sophistication. High levels of sophistication are people that know what products are out there. They already know what people are selling, what the solutions are. They're product aware and solution aware, right? And then you've got like, and that's in like med spa. So if we take an example from another niche, like say you go into tree removal, where you're dealing with like 50-year-old men that have no idea what Facebook ads are, they're kind of problem aware, but they have no idea about the solution. So they're a low to medium level of sophistication. You might not need a call center in that type of industry, and you can still make a lot of money with it. Like I've got a guy that I consult that does that exact thing. He's doing like 60K a month with like a 90% margin simply because he doesn't need a call center. So yeah, it just depends on what kind of market you're in. But for me, I wanted to build it purely because I had to in my industry.
Okay. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Um, do you have that built out within Go High Level, or are you using like an external hot prospector or something like that?
We use an external dialer tool. I'm partnered up
Okay,
with Hot
gotcha.
Prospector, and we use them. I think they're great.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's what I'm on to right now. Makes sense. Makes sense. And in your opinion, man, I think you kind of answered this, but I just want to make sure it's fully clear for the person listening. For someone that's trying to break into the online business space right now, they're confused with all these different business models out there. Would you still recommend SMMA to that person, knowing what you know now, or would you suggest something else as of right now?
The thing is, because there's a lot of people that haven't started a business, and even people that do have a business at a low level, that are getting pulled in by the new shiny object. And
Yeah.
there's always a new shiny object. Like SMMA now is actually a lot less talked about than it was 2, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. It
Yeah.
was the big hot woman in the red dress 4 years ago. Now it's not. People are talking about AI infrastructure and AI build outs for like for clients and local businesses. What they don't understand is they're pretty much down the same thing. Now, could you argue there's different avenues you can go down with that? Yes, but like I can tell you because I've seen these things, and you could argue I'm even building an AI infrastructure agency. It's the same damn thing where it's like the only difference between the two models is like if you're building AI infrastructure, you probably still want to run their ads because people always need leads. It's always a problem that a lot of local businesses face, or any business in general faces. They want new clients, but you're just going to then start embedding AI into that. So I do believe that it's the right business model for everyone, really, because the only thing that's changing is people are just putting a new name on it and using AI in it at a very low level. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I agree with that. Talking about AI, because even before you said, that's going to have an impact on SMMA and how things are being done. In a recent video, I know you were even talking about AI is going to take over humanity and whatnot. I'm curious. So, what do you think that looks like? AI and SMMA. What's the impact?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first thing is like in terms of the way that the agency is structured, it's just going to change significantly because right now, like the way that the agency is structured is it's very people based, and I don't think that's going to change. There's always going to be people in an agency, but for example, in like an 100K a month agency, you're going to need client success managers, you're going to need media buyers, you're going to need tech people, you're going to need VAs, you're probably going to need onboarding specialists, and I believe that a lot of the like copy and paste positions on the team side are going to be removed. So like CSMs, sales reps, they're pretty safe. But like if we look at setters, call agents, tech specialists, media buyers, onboarding people, All of that is going to be AI. So instead of those people, what it will be is you'll have the CEO of the company, and then you'll have below that like an AI prompt engineer or like an AI operator. And that AI operator will then have a prompt engineer underneath them. And that prompt engineer will be able to train sub agents to do specific things in the agency. So that prompt engineer will basically prompt team members, which are just AI agents, to be media buyers, to go into the ads manager, to refresh the ads, to create new creatives. I mean, if you look at ChatGPT operators, it's not a long shot away. It's probably coming in the next 6, 12 months. And then onboarding people. If you have an SOP on anything, again, AI will be able to take control of your screen. It will be prompted by the prompt engineer. That prompt engineer will train the AI agent to do the onboarding process, complete tickets for clients. Same applies with media buyers, setters, AI agents, like all of that's already under development and it's getting pretty damn close. That's the first thing, which is the team. And then you've got the overall actual fulfillment system. So number one, like, yeah, calling your clients' leads will be done by AI. Number two, nurturing your clients' leads via text will be done by AI. And that's what a lot of people are selling as an AI build out. They're just white labeling a tool like Closebot or Pointwise, Go High Level Conversation AI, which is pretty much them just automating the nurture process with AI. And then as well, another big thing that I think is going to be so huge as AI continues to take over is data. So one thing that we're doing in our agency is we have a centralized dashboard that all of our clients have visibility on, where we have all of our client data on a day-to-day basis that's being fed into that dashboard. And they have an AI platform that they can go in and ask it questions on based on the data. And the AI gets smarter and smarter every single day based on the data that's fed it and the questions that get asked to it. So if we have a client in New Jersey who wants to launch a new campaign for their Botox, they can type in, hey, how is this campaign going to perform? What would you recommend based on my industry, based on my niche, based on who I am, what I do? And it will be able to pull data from other clients to give them, here's what you should expect in terms of the KPIs, your cost per lead, your cost per booking, your show rate, your ROI. Here's what problems you might fall into. Here's the recommendations I have based on the data from this agency. So that's the way that I really see AI changing the model. Again, I don't think it's going to kill the model. I just think it's going to change it a lot.
So for someone listening to that, and maybe they hear you saying there's going to be AI agents that are going to be able to fully manage the ads manager and run campaigns and stuff like that, and they're listening to them and they're like, oh man, like, why would I get into SMMA if AI can just easily run ads for me? And that's one of the biggest parts of the model, right? What advice would you give to that person?
I would say learn it. At the end of the day, like, it's not gone now. Like, the way that I see it is AI is kind of like the internet when it first came out. There was the people that were like, oh, the internet, it's like, I'm just going to leave it. It's not going to be a problem. And then what happened with those people? They went out of business, right? And then there was people that continued running their business anyway, but was optimistic and was like, internet's going to take over the world, and they adapted their model. So I would still argue that the traditional SMMA still works. You've just got to make sure that you're keeping your finger on the pulse with AI. And that's why I'd encourage you to get around people that know a lot about AI, that are already doing the things that you want to do, and have the cash flow to be able to figure those things out for you. It's kind of like looking at the Facebook ads library, right? Like, people look at the Facebook ads library, number one, see what the competitors are doing, but to leverage other people's spending power. Like, if you look at somebody else in your market or your industry that's spending, already like 100K a month on ads as an example, you already know chances are that they've got ads that are working. They're working. They've got a validated offer. They've got a good funnel. They've got a good nurture process. So you can replicate that. It's kind of like the same thing with AI. You just want to look at the people that are already crushing it with it, that know what they're talking about, and figure out what the hell they're doing.
Okay, gotcha. So learn it and implement it.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Now, that brings me to my next question, man. Your newest venture, License and Scale, right? I want to talk a little bit about that. So you're letting other agency owners essentially license the same systems. You're using to scale your MetSpa agency past $200,000 per month. So for people listening, what does that actually look like, and how are you helping them grow?
Yeah. So there's like 4 key pillars that go into actually building a good agency, right? You've got acquiring clients, you've got retaining those clients, you've got getting those clients to spend more money, and then you've got the operations, the system, the team, the management, all that other bullshit that nobody talks about. The biggest reason I decided to build this was, to be honest with you, I was split between like continuing to scale the agency and build this. And I was like, okay, I'll just do both because I'm not really that involved in the agency. And I don't think there's anything more fulfilling than helping people that are you. I've been those people. I know what problems they have at every single level. I can see 100 steps ahead of where they're already at. And my goal is to help people solve the problems they don't know, as well as the ones that are right in front of them that they still don't know how to solve. One of the biggest gaps that I saw in the market, though, was team management. Number one, nobody talks about it, and it's heavily under talked about because it's so important, because an agency is people. You're in the people business.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
not like fulfillment is people. And when you go and try and exit an agency, the number one thing they look at is your team. How sticky are they? How good are they? If you leave the company, can your team still run the agency without you? And that's my goal, to have people run a self-sustaining agency with a team that can run it with them. So hiring systems, management systems, and having systems that they can take a vacation for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks and be completely fine because they have the SOPs, they have the tracking systems. They can look at one centralized dashboard and go, here's where my biggest constraint is in the agency. Here's how I fix it. And then as well, obviously, like the AI stuff is huge too. And I'm leaning heavily on that. You know, we've got developers in there, we've got AI specialists that got their finger on the pulse with that stuff all the time. So we can adapt and innovate way quicker than anybody else can. Because who's going to move quicker? You know, the one person that's looking into AI on YouTube every now and again, or say 50 people that have got their finger on the pulse with AI every single day, sharing all their ideas with one another on what they can implement and what they've tested. So that's essentially what I'm trying to build. I want to get people to a point of exit or founder removal where they can have a business that cash flows without them, and being able to do that without AI completely running them into the ground.
Gotcha. And this is, I'm assuming this is one of those things that ties into your long-term vision, right? Because that is my next question. 5 to 10, maybe even 25 years. Is this what you see yourself working on rather than the agency stuff?
Correct. I see. So let's just look in the next 5 years. My vision over the next 5 years is to completely dominate the info industry. And I know I can do it because I've been in every single program
Yeah.
that anybody can think of. You know, in the last like 12 months, I spent about $300,000 on courses, coaches, mentors. I know what was good about them, what was bad about them. I know what I did like, what I didn't like, same thing, but I know what's missing. And it's like, I want to fill that gap. And that's my 5 year vision of like, I want to build something so damn good. There is this crazy, undeniable stack of self-proof around like, why wouldn't I buy this thing? It's absolutely unreal. And it's not just like just acquisition. It's not just mindset. It's not just team where you have to buy 7 different programs to solve 7 different problems. One centralized place where you solve all of your problems that you have now and the ones that you don't have. So you don't need to keep shopping around figuring other things out. That's my main problem that I'm trying to solve. My vision to build the number one info product, and to, in terms of the revenue goal, in the next 12 months, I want to get it to $1 million a month.
Okay. I love it. How long have you been running it for? Is it new, like brand new?
We haven't
or
even launched
few
it
months?
yet. So
Oh,
it's
really?
yes. So I've been talking about it and we've got about 30 people in the program now. But I've been quite selective with who we brought on purely because I don't just want to bring people in that, like, for example, I had a guy yesterday who showed up 20 minutes late to a call and I was like, bro, I'm not working with you. You know, I can't be asked.
Fair
And
enough.
that's why I'm so grateful for the agency, because you put yourself in a position where you have the money, where you can work with who the hell you want to work with. And I only want to work with people that I would hang around with for free now. But to answer your question, what was the question again? It just completely slipped my mind.
Um,
You forgot
there
to.
was it was a question that popped up in my head, and I asked you based on that. But
Yeah.
I know we were talking about vision and long term vision and everything like that. Oh yeah, I asked you if it was brand new. That's where we were getting at.
Yes, sorry. So I
Yeah.
did a pre-launch about a month and a half ago. So
Right.
just been people that have been reaching out to me, wanting to book a call, having a call, seeing if I can help them. If I can, great. Just currently in build mode right now. I project it's probably going to take me about 7 or 8 months to complete V1, and then we'll go from there. But a lot of deep work right now.
Dude, I'm excited to see where that goes because with you, like I said before, it's one of those things where even when you came on my feed like 2 3 years ago, it was very clear that you were gonna be, you know, like where you are right now. It makes perfect sense. It's not by surprise. I'm not looking at you right now and I'm like, oh shoot, holy shit, this guy's here. If anything, it just, you know, I already saw that, and I'm excited for this too because you're 100% right, man. Like when I've worked in with other people too in this space and things like that, and there's a lot of the times I come across somebody and I'm like I don't 100% have faith in what they're doing, but with you for some reason I've always watched your content and I'm like, okay, this guy 100% knows what he's doing. He's actually one of those few guys that focuses on service delivery and client results, and you actually talk about systems and how to do the right things. It's not just, hey man, fix your mindset and go meditate for 30 minutes and your agency's going to scale, you know? So
Yeah.
truly excited for you to see, you know, truly excited to see where that goes because I know it's going to be going in a really good direction. So
Yeah, and
that'll be
it's
awesome.
frustrating, man, because it's like it's kind of hard to know who to trust, because it's like the people that sell you the courses made their money selling courses. And
Exactly,
they
exactly.
usually shut their agency down because they couldn't
Yeah,
handle it, because they didn't have the fulfillment, they didn't have the team, they didn't have the
yeah,
systems, and then they sell you on the course on how they did the thing, and then when you go and
yeah.
try and ask them questions about these things, they can't answer them, or they give you
I
fucking woo
know.
woo answers because they've never done it. You know?
Very true, dude.
Yeah.
That's 100% true. Like I've asked, like that's 100% true because I've asked, people that kind of like advertise, like, oh yeah, I made this much. They're like 1 month numbers. What like the maximum
Bro,
amount they
it's
hit, and then you ask them a
everyone, man.
question, right? And then the problem is because then they give you advice that realistically they've never implemented anything like that, or they don't have any knowledge, but they answer it so confidently because they're running some sort of program, and then you're sitting here like, oh fuck, but I genuinely think I would do it like this, and then you waste all this time learning from sometimes the wrong people. So with you, it's like, the Met Spa agency and everything, you've scaled it to like crazy numbers. So people are just going to be they're just going to be able to implement all of that and all that advice and directly just grow their business
Mhm.
overnight almost. That'll be awesome.
Yeah. And
Exactly.
I think as well, like, just for this will probably hit for some people that are just trying to like pick a niche and things like that. I think one of the biggest mistakes I made was going in med spa too.
Really?
Yes, 100%, because of leverage. I'll give you an example. I've been consulting this guy. His name's Edvin. Um, he came to the mastermind that I hosted in November, and he was doing about 50K a month. He's doing 500,000 a month right now with 60 clients. So he's got nearly half the amount of clients that I do, and he
Mm-hmm.
makes 500K a month. He makes double what I do, and
Well,
that's because of leverage. Because leverage is like the definition of it is how much you get out for what you put in, and he had more leverage than me because if he works with, say, remodelers as an example, and he can bring them one client that pays them 50K, he only needs to bring them one project and he makes them 50K. I have to bring my client 30, 40, 50 clients for them to make 50K. And
yeah.
realistically, I'm only really going to make them, 15K a month on a good month. So
Mm-hmm.
you get paid in correlation to the amount of money you can make for your clients. And that's why I believe that,
Yeah.
for anybody that's starting out, like having a high leverage opportunity is so important. And at
Mm-hmm.
each new level, I realize more and more and more how important the vehicle is.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. I think that too because I'm in the space with like auto detailers where I feel like it's almost aligned with what you have.
Hmm.
Well, with like the Met Spa space in terms of like services and stuff. Like they do have like higher ticket offers, but I do look at these guys in this in the trade space, remodelers and roofers and everything, and like they're making their clients past $50,000 per month, 80,000, 100,000, just
Hmm.
off a few projects. So that's definitely interesting. Um, would you I mean, going back, would you? So you would have probably picked one of those industries, yeah, like things like roofing and
Yeah.
everything.
I mean, there's
Gotcha.
a couple of different like benchmarks that I'm looking for when I'm picking a niche. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking for. I'm just gonna pull this up because made a document on this. So, like
Yeah.
total addressable market. Like I'm looking for something with a pretty big TAM. That's what we call it.
Right.
Like it needs to be large enough for growth, but not saturated. Ticket size. So like, how much do they charge the end consumer? I want them to make as much money as possible from one client because if I can bring them one client and they can make 5x the amount of money they pay me, I've got way more leverage. And then sophistication and awareness level. I'm looking for somebody that's kind of solution aware, but not highly aware to the point where they know they need a call center with Facebook ads. And then I'm also looking at something with a medium level of sophistication, not somebody who's highly sophisticated, who's like, okay, I've been through five different agencies. What's your guarantee? I want 30-day money back. I only want to pay per patient, things like that. And then consumer
Mm-hmm.
demand type, like the people that they take as clients, I want it to be as much on the side of the spectrum as a want instead of a need because I know that that's not going to fluctuate in terms of seasonality. People that have a tree falling on their house, that is a want, it's not a need. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the reason that I like going for niches like that because they're often a lot more scalable.
Right. That's really good advice, man. All right. Well, last thing, I ask this to every guest that comes on. Looking back at everything that you've done, the wins, the losses, the lessons, if you could leave the audience with just one piece of advice, something that could actually change their life or their business, what would that be?
This is going to be the most obvious advice ever, but I read it in nearly every book that I read. As a Man Thinketh, Psycho-Cybernetics, what's the book called? The, the Master Key, like all of these books that talk about mindset, how you get what you want. You really can have anything you want if you can see it in the mind. Because if you think about it, right? Like everything if you really zoom out and think about the computers that we're on now, the fucking big microphone that I have, this big 80-story apartment that I'm in. Like, all of it was
Mm-hmm.
built by man or women.
Yeah.
You can women too. I'm not I'm not pulling away from that. But what
Yeah.
I'm saying is, where did that come from? It was first in the mind. So once you
Mm-hmm.
understand that and you realize I can really have anything that my mind can perceive, as long as you are willing to bear the sacrifice that it takes to get there, then you're going to be completely fine. And another quote that I read a lot, and I read it every single morning: the man who does not shrink from self crucifixion can achieve anything his heart is set on. Which is, if you can bear the pain and the sacrifice that it will take to get what you want, and you are crystal clear on what you want. I'm not just talking like, I want to run an agency. Like, I want this at that date. Here's how I'm going to get it. Here's exactly what I want. Here's what my life is going to look like. Here's what my days look like. Here's the people that I'm around. Here's how I walk. Here's how I dress. Here's how I act. You will get it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it would be unreasonable for you not to. And I don't know anybody that went all in on anything and did not get it.
Yeah. That's a great answer, man. I've asked that question a few times, and I love that. That honestly hits home. But yeah, man, thank you for coming on, dude. Really appreciate it. I feel like this conversation was long overdue. I've been wanting to have you on for quite some time now. You've been one of the guys on my list. Um, Keep crushing it, man. You're doing phenomenal. It's honestly great to just see your channel and all the growth that you're, you know, having over these past few years and everything that's gonna come for you over the next few. Um, so it was great connecting with you, man. For everybody watching, everything's gonna be linked below. I'll have his Instagram, YouTube. Make sure you guys go check him out. Subscribe to his channel. He's one of the few guys that consistently just provides value and isn't necessarily trying to just sell you on something. You know, clearly with the course and everything that he's preparing for you guys, things like license and skill, you guys are going to be very selective with who you work with, and it's just one of those guaranteed outcomes for your clients, I'm assuming, where whoever you guys are working with, you're extremely confident that you can grow the fuck out of their business, right? And I feel like that's something that's missing in this info space. A lot of people get involved in partnerships where they don't necessarily think they can do much for them, but they will sign them on. So that's one of the special things I definitely see about you, man, and really appreciate you coming on once again.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, man.
Awesome. Definitely. Take it easy, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.